All right, guys, what's going on? Nick Drossos. I'm here with Harinder. How do we say it? Harinder Singh.
Singh. Harinder Singh.
Harinder Singh.
Yeah.
Harinder, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. And I saw you on. I've been following you, and I saw you on Black Belt Magazine. And I also saw that you're working a little bit with Master Wong, and I've done a few videos with him. And I said, let me reach out to you. And man, it's really cool to meet you. I know a little bit about you, but not enough about you. So I think I want the viewers to learn a little bit more about you. Like, I didn't know, what nationality are you?
Well, first off, pleasure to meet you, man. Master Wong's a great dude, so what's up to him? And I'm Indian. Yeah, my nationality is from India.
Okay.
I was born there. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and I live in California. So I've been here in California for the last 22 years.
And how long have you been practicing martial arts?
Well, I started martial arts when I was 6 years old in Washington Ryu Karate at the University of Toronto Academy of Karate and Judo under Sensei Bert Konzak and James Posey. And it all started then. It was all a dream at one point, and I never thought that it would end up becoming a career and my life's passion and work, but love it, every bit of it.
What made you get it? Is it something you wanted, or did your parents say, go take a martial art?
Well, it was both. My dad traveled a lot. He was a sea captain. So, we were immigrants in Canada, and he wanted to, and I was the oldest son. I had two younger brothers. And so he wanted to make sure that I knew how to defend myself. And as a matter of fact, over my crib, when I was a baby, he had two giant posters that would lean forward on a 45-degree angle, one of Muhammad Ali and one of Bruce Lee. Lo and behold, it didn't understand that brainwashing would have gotten me to this point.
Was it something that he wanted you to do, or?
Yeah, he wanted me to do it, and just to be able to, from a self-defense standpoint. And my mom wanted it from the philosophical standpoint. And so my mom researched like all the different people out there, and she chose the University of Toronto Academy of Karate and Judo because our head sensei, Sensei Bert Konzak, the one who ran it, was a philosophy professor. And coming from a background where my grandfather is a professor, my great-grandfather was a professor, so she was like, okay, well, this guy must know what he's doing. He's into education and philosophy, and that I would get much more out of it. And that's how she chose where to put me. And then the journey started. And, I loved every bit of it. There's obviously many times as a child you want to quit and do other things. But got to take a moment right now to thank my mom for never letting me quit. She was like, no son of mine is going to quit anything. Because at green belt, I know I probably wanted to quit. The blue belt, I wanted to quit. And but then after a while, you ride through it. And it's definitely changed my life in every aspect. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without martial arts. Martial arts has saved my life, shown me a purpose in life, taught me how to understand myself, other people. And
I have a question. Was it we hear about I've been in it for like 20 years. I started when I was 8 years old too, very young, 9. But was it always a career for you, or like did you leave? Like, I left, I went to work, I had to get a part-time job to make money, and I did it on the side. I was still training, or was it always like, that's it, you knew this was going to be your career, this is what you were going to do?
No, actually not at all. I didn't know. When I was 19 years old, I got a tennis scholarship to come. I thought I was going to be a professional tennis player. So I got a tennis scholarship to come play for the University of California. And of course, by that time, I knew the professional thing was gone, but at least I'd play NCAA, because in tennis, if you're not already playing pro at that time, it's not going to happen. And I came in and did my engineering degree in computer and electrical engineering, and graduated just before the dot-com boom of the early 2000s. And bam, I'm in the Silicon Valley, and that's what I thought my career would be. The year before I graduated, though, an incident happened, and that incident kind of shifted everything. We were at a bonfire celebration that was happening towards the end of the year, so you just finished all your exams, you drive down to the beach. It's a place we had never ever been to. It was like 2 hours away from my school, and we got there really late, last car to arrive. Lo and behold, long story short, we're in the wrong place at the wrong time, right we're last 2 cars to get there. What do? You're in college, you just finished, you jump out of the car, let's pop open some beers, you're cheersing with the other guys, and literally out of the darkness come 25 local gangsters. It was their turf. They were iced out on something. They were looking for someone. My roommate looked like the guy they were looking for. And it was like, literally, it's exactly like a movie. I can remember it like yesterday. The entry is also from a tactical approach. They asked the guy to the right, my roommates to my left, they asked the guy to the right for a cigarette. We all look at him, and then boom, they snatch my roommate, put him to the center, start beating on him. But then they form a perimeter. So it's like formation fighting that they're used to. And then one guy attacks me with the 2x4. I mean, when he approached this guy, you know, and at that time, when I go back and I think about it, the lack of situational awareness is quite funny right now to think about, that out of darkness, 25 people show up. Like when you're in your head and you're just having a good time and you're not paying attention, that, you know, it's such a crazy thing to think about, but all of us get in trouble at that time, right? Because our energy is not out and we're not paying attention. We're just totally relaxed. And, you know, one of the guy that swung at me, he had a shirt open, had a tattoo down the center, but he had like straddled a 2x4, you know, that he had just pulled off a fence because you could still see the two nails sticking out the side. And I still didn't react, right? We're still trying to stay calm. The guy's coming up. He asked him for a cigarette. We look over there. As we look over there, they grab my roommate, and it was like that, into the center. The guy swings with the 2x4. I do an upper block, and I hit him, and then I run between the 2 cars that were there. And in that time, they drag my roommate to the center, form a formation, and then there's guys chasing me. So I'm running around. So it doesn't look like a fight that happens like in the movies, like Bruce Lee. I stand in the center. You guys all come one at a time. I mean, this was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. You know, one-on-one street fights, things like that. You get in. I've been in a lot of those, but it was nothing like this where there was no care for life, and they were fighting in formation. You know, it was kind of crazy. So it looked more like a rugby match that I'm running around the parking lot for 3 to 4 minutes. I don't hit anybody. I'm getting hit, stuff like that. And it's literally people trying to take me down. That goes on for a few minutes. And then obviously I think somebody had called the police, and up the hill, you could see the sirens coming. Ooh. But just before actually that, what got the pressure off of us, because this went on for a little bit of time, the 2 guys they were looking for happened to walk by. So as they walked by, they forgot about us and just boom, stormed those 2 guys. So I pulled my roommate, went off to the beach, took him back, and I was like, oh, I got to go back and find out what had happened. You know, I'm bleeding and stuff, and hit on the head. My elbow right here still has a chip from that shot. And I'm like, I'm going to get a license plate, you know, something like that. As I go over there, now the cars are coming. They're about a mile and a half up. And now they're all getting in their cars to get away. And I'm looking at the lead car that's in front of me. It's a Cadillac Escalade. I still remember it so clearly. And as I'm looking at it, I see the driver's door open, and the guy sees me and he steps out. He's in a gray sweatsuit, and he goes like this. I turn and I run, and I hear 2 shots. I don't know if they're fired in my direction or not, but I was gone. I never ran faster than the wind. I could have probably broke the 100-meter record that day. But that experience changed me, man. You know, it changed me wholly and totally. And the other way it changed me too was that when it happened, it changed me from an emotional standpoint because I felt violated. I felt angry. I felt hurt, you know, and I was like, oh, that's never going to happen to me again. It's never going to happen to me again. Next time I'm going to F up everybody. I want to become the baddest man on the planet. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find the best street fighters. I'm going to go train with them, you know, and so my mind just kind of went that way. But at the same time, in that moment when I was being hit and all that, I had my life-altering moment because I experienced the still point for the first time in my life. Like really, like, you know, I'd experienced it in sports. We call it the zone. We've all been in there where you can't miss a shot. Time slows down and it's completely effortless. Yeah. I experienced it in that time as again, and, you know, I'd experienced it growing up in karate and stuff like that, but never to that degree because there was so much more on the line. And everything slowed down. The fear was gone because I was just acting and reacting. There's no time to think, right? But there's this, like, at the same time, you're like noticing the noticer. I'm watching myself acting and reacting. It's, whoa, this is kind of cool. But at the same time, like, I have no idea what to do. I had no clue what to do.
It's also happening at super fast speed where you by the time you have enough time to assess, you don't. It's already on. You know what I mean?
It's already on. It's already on. And so there's, I don't know what to do, but it's happening so fast, but everything's moving so slow. It's like I'm in the matrix, but I have no idea what to do. So I'm just now the observer. So I've met the observer for the first time, the still point. I remember I was like, this is kind of cool, but at the same time, like, oh, this is crazy. It was like a crazy cool experience. And then ever since then, my mission was always to be like, okay, this mindset, this feeling of this moment, there's something to this that's so powerful. And then I got to also have a strategy and tactics of what to do. Right? You can have that moment all you want, and you don't know what to do. You're of no good to anybody. So yeah, and that really forged my journey. And after that, so I went into the Silicon Valley. I got an amazing job, super paid well. So then now I could afford the best training in the world, one-on-one. I never took a group class. Yeah, never took a group class. I went and I hired the best instructors. I would fly every weekend. I would train in the mornings, train in the evenings, and that's how it started. And I did that for 8 years. And then I decided to go full time. As a matter of fact, 12 years ago, and I've been teaching martial arts full time and mindset. And I speak a lot. I work with corporations and executives and give them mindset training as well. Because how do we get into that zone? I've had the privilege of working with over 150 military, police, and government agencies through ILETA, the International Law Enforcement Educators and Trainers Association. I work with Century, Black Belt Magazine, and it's really cool because I know that when we find that, like, now when I sit back and I look at those guys that attack me, they were the greatest gift that could have ever happened to me in my life. I thank those guys for pivoting my path, because otherwise, man, I was driven by, like, I wanted to make money, I wanted the stock options, and driven by all material things. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's good to have those things so you can live a great life, but that couldn't be what I was defining myself by, right? And now we're here sitting, talking together, and sharing martial arts and helping serve the world, right? And that's the part that gets me juiced. You know what I'm saying?
I love what you say, is helping serve the world. And I think I tell people we're in one of the toughest industries, in the sense there's a lot of keyboard warriors, a lot of ideas, a lot of things that go around. There's a lot of gray zone where everything could be broken down and debated. And I tell people, it's like, how do you stand out and be the best that you could be at what you teach? I've always said often in interviews, especially being on YouTube and being in the social media, you always have the guy pointing at you, putting you down. This is shit. This good. This is not good. And I always tell people, be the best you could be by being, not by saying I'm better than you because you suck. I'm the best that I can be because this is what I believe. And you're constantly working on being better and working together with the people around you in the community. To, at the end, we're all trying to find some quote unquote truth into what works best, whether it's for self-defense or martial arts. And at the end, what works best for you as well. So I think when I look at the industry and, being on YouTube and stuff, it does become sometimes, like, hard to try to make this a business and try to make it as a career. So what have you been have you had challenges like that, as not only as an instructor, but also as businessman, trying to build your business and your brand and what you do?
Yes, absolutely. A long time ago, somebody said to me that the path of the samurai or the warrior is not a pleasant path, that there's going to be many different obstacles that are in the way, right? And this is one of my teachers that said that. And basically what he was referring to is that if you choose to be a martial artist, this is a difficult industry. Let's be dead honest. It's a difficult industry. There is so many, you have brick and mortar businesses, and then you have training businesses, you have online businesses, you have video-based businesses, you have people, you could write books. There's many avenues that are there. And you have to understand exactly what you're going to do, because you can't do them all. If you're running a brick and mortar, it's going to be really tough to travel around and teach seminars. Yeah. If your goal is to, again, be in brick and mortar, you're consumed by that. You're not going to be able to make, it's going to be tougher to create materials and things like that. It's just a time thing and also a training thing. So for me, when I got into the business, I always went in to train the trainer. So since the beginning, I was, I'm going to open a school, as a matter of fact, as soon as everything clears up. But my goal has always been to be in train the trainer business. So I've always worked with teaching teachers, and that was my goal from day one. That's what I wanted to do when I went full-time into this, that I wanted to work with people who wanted to teach other people. So everything I started to design, having my engineering background, I started to put programs together. I started to put trainings together, and following my teachers, how they built and structured things, I started to structure things that way so that I could impart the knowledge on other people so we could empower them to go serve as many people as possible. And so that was always my goal from the get-go. And now, because I have young kids, I have a 5-year-old son and I have a 1.5-year-old son. So that's led me. So I started when my 5-year-old was 2 years old, I started a kids class because I wanted a play date with all his buddies. So they're having a play date, but they're doing martial arts twice a week with me, right? You got to lead them into it. And so they've been doing that since then. And now they're getting older, and I wanted him to have a place to go, to grow with other kids that are his friends, that are in this environment that produces martial arts, the mindset, studying and training, and, a positive place where the place I'm going to build out is going to have, they want to play soccer. The martial arts team is going to go play soccer. We're going to go play football. The martial arts team is going to go play football. So I wanted to create a community, and around that community, so that I could be there for my kids, so they could grow up in that. And so that's why I'm going towards that. But my advice to people is that you have to find what you love to do, right? And being in business, the interesting thing is that martial artists are not taught business. That's what ends up happening, because you love to do what you do. You love to train, you love to teach. But to run a business is a whole different game. That's a different skill set. Sometimes what ends up happening is that skill set kind of messes up this skill set, right? There's an integrity piece there where you get caught. So you have to always be aligned with what your values are and what you want to do, and where you could bring the most power, i.e. the most service to somebody else, and what you love to do, and figure out how to turn that into a business. And each person, the answer is going to be different. For me, it was always train the trainer. The track has always been train the trainer. So even when I'm working with law enforcement, I created programs. After I created the programs, I started teaching the trainers. Then the trainers started implementing those programs in their various institutions all across the globe. And that's how I found success in that realm. And as you know, training law enforcement, you don't put an ad out. It's a word of mouth business. So it's a word of mouth business. So if you produce something that works, and again, I worked with people in law enforcement who were my students to develop these programs so that it would solve their needs. Then I have programs with, we're just starting Black Belt University with Century Martial Arts and Black Belt Magazine. Probably in the next 6 to 7 months, it'll go live. And what that's designed to do is take martial artists of all styles and systems. Once you have a black belt, where are we going to go next? Because the thing is that the martial arts industry, if we look at it, has changed. It's not a singularity anymore. It's about a totality. And I'll make it really simple for people to understand, because if you think about it, you and I, when we were growing up, how did we consume martial arts? It was through movies. So I see Bruce Lee, I see Van Damme, and what do we see in there? Kung Fu, karate. Okay, so mom, I watched the Karate Kid, take me to karate.
Yeah.
And that's how kids went to school. My kids growing up now, they're going to consume it from where? YouTube and the UFC. Because YouTube, right? And YouTube has totality, not a singularity. It means anything and everything is there on YouTube. So the totality of information is there. A point with the UFC. So ESPN buys the rights to UFC in 2019, and they start ESPN Plus. And hang with me where I'm going for the people listening, because it'll make sense. I'm a numbers person, and we can predict the future this way. So if ESPN gets into the UFC business and they start ESPN Plus, which is a subscription business, in 1 year they have 6 million subscribers. And this data is out there. It came out in January 2020. Conor McGregor goes to fight in January, and they go from 6.1 million to 7.5 million subscribers with just one UFC fighter. But here's the thing. So they had 6 million subscribers of all sports, and with one UFC fight, they went up 1.5 million subscribers. ESPN now has an ability to have pay-per-view on the back end to make more money. So it's in their best interest to make UFC the #1 sport, because they don't make back end money on baseball, basketball, and all the other sports.
Good point.
Just UFC they do. So they're going to do everything possible to make UFC everywhere. And it's owned by Disney too. So you got to see who's owning the companies, and they're going to make it the #1 sport. So now little Timmy is going to grow up watching UFC with basketball. And then when little Timmy wants to learn martial arts, little Timmy's going to say, go to karate, because that's where his mom is going to put him in. And he's going to say, I want to learn a double leg. And he goes to the sensei, teach me a double leg. And the sensei says, well, right now we're working on the form. So there'll be a disconnect. A rear naked choke. There'll be a disconnect because of what they're teaching. So the thing is that when we were growing up, it was a leg drop, a pile driver, a suplex, right? I didn't have to go learn it. I knew how to do it. I was doing it with my brothers. So now the kids now are going to do that. So the lingo is there. So the thing is that if you go to MMA schools, the structure and discipline of a traditional school is what parents are seeking. It's not there yet. But for karate and taekwondo and kung fu schools, jiu-jitsu schools, whatever you're teaching, Krav Maga schools, this is the greatest opportunity in the history of martial arts. Because it's not about abandoning your style. It's about saying, here's my style, and here's how it plugs into this totality of this matrix. You feel me?
I love that, because I find more and more, people ask me, does Kung Fu work? Does this work? I say, look, there's each system has levels of what they're stronger than others. And it's knowing how, you're not there to say this system is better than they're each interconnected somehow.
Yes.
It all depends on what you're going to take,
yes,
how you're going to use it, how you're going to apply it. And they each have their own style and their own method and their own purpose. And when you could merge them all together and find a way how to use them as well for traditional, but as well in the street, then again, it makes a lot more, again, it makes it, how do I say it? It makes it more educational. You're learning more, you're exchanging. It's not just, put on the blinders and my system is the only system and nothing else works. So I try to avoid that when people, ask me to make videos, or does this system, I'm like, well, they each have their pros and cons. Some are better than others. And again, you got to test it out for yourself and see what works for you. And I like the idea of being able to put everything together and creating a community where, and instead of, we're not all in competition with each other. We're all there to learn, exchange, and grow together this industry as best as we can, and serve people and give them the best information as well.
Yeah, it's a beautiful time, right? Because it's a time of cooperation and not competition. Because the thing is that, so if I'm a karate practitioner, let's say, I've met guys with a reverse punch I don't want to be hit with. They're one hit, one kill. They'll knock you out. But then there's wrestlers out there who will take you down. So then the thing becomes, who's a better practitioner at time and space management that can pull their technique off against the other? And it's a beautiful thing. So it's not about the style. It's now about the individual. It's about the individual's ability to control time and space, the individual's ability to expand their awareness, the individual's ability to experiment. Because if we're not exploring, discovering, learning, growing, and creating the five, what's the point of doing anything anyways? So right now I can go down the street and find a wrestler and be like, all right, buddy, you come and you shoot at me and take me down. And I'm going to try to stop the takedown. And when I can't, you teach me how you would stop the takedown. So I learn the timing and the defense behind it. And then I can practice that. And then maybe can I insert my own thing at that time? But without experimentation, we don't know. So to me, it's a wonderful game. This back to Musashi, the Book of the Wind was the book of other schools. So even then he's like, your sword style, you got to learn all the other sword styles, means the benefits and the drawbacks and how you fit into it. Because the benefits and drawbacks is a personal thing. How do you fit into it? And it's a giant chess match. So if we can approach it with this awesome giant chess match, there's always something to learn. There's no such thing as a master. There's mastery, means how the process that which we approach our training is more important than the training. Man, the living being, the creating individual is far more important than any style or system. It's so cool. Like, why would we go any other way? Everything else comes from an ego based, and that ego comes from fear and uncertainty and scarcity,
And
and that whole thing. And that's what the
right.
martial arts is supposed to liberate us from.
And this industry, from what I've seen, obviously, like, you know, there is that ego that comes into play, because everybody, sometimes I feel when I follow people in the industry, everybody wants to be the one who created this unique system. I'm the next Bruce Lee. My system is more, and I'm just like, guys, there's no, you know, there's no one system has every answer and every possibility and every tech. Like, it's systems that it's a combination of many different styles that we could all put together. And again, the ego comes in the way because people want to so much sometimes want to stand out or be more different or want to build that name. And this is when I find it starts being counterproductive to the industry, and it also gives a bad reputation to the industry in terms of the martial arts industry. And that's why, like, even when I'm more and more collaborating, I'm trying to collaborate with people who have the same mindset, the same values, who share more or less the same vision. And I love the word you keep saying is to serve. At the end, we're here to serve and give the best information that we can with what we know at this very moment through our experience, our training, our, you know, what we've gathered as information. And I think that's all we could really base ourselves on. And I think that if the community can, like, it's coming together, I think it's great for the industry for sure.
Absolutely. You know, there's no standard at the moment. You know, I think that's from a professional standpoint. If I tell you, hey, I have my degree in engineering from this university, you're like, okay, you know what you're talking about. You don't have to even, there's a standard somewhere. But in our industry, where the gray area comes in is the standard thing, right? And that's where if you go to China, for example, and Korea, you could go, China specifically, I've been there many times for training, and that's where I got the idea for Black Belt University, was the fact that we don't have a program in play right now that allows us to give us a professional degree. So in China, I could do a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD in martial arts from a real school where I'm doing all my biology, kinesiology, and, you know, all the different study subjects, general education subjects. And at the same time, you're growing in your martial arts experience all the way to getting your doctorate in martial arts. And if we had a standard like that in North America, that would definitely help us out a lot, because the thing is that when we go back to in martial arts, it's a science of teaching martial arts beyond the art that you do yourself, because you have to understand sociology, you have to understand philosophy, you got to understand biomechanics, you got to understand kinesiology, then you got to understand accounting, you got to understand finance, you got to understand marketing if you're going to do it professionally, run a school or whatever. We have to understand these things, and there's so much education that goes in. There's so much time we put into our craft that if there is a mode or an avenue like that as a professional degree that people can work towards and say, hey, look, I have this degree that I went and learned this, but it's not style specific. Because as a karateka, let's say I do my black belt or Brazilian jiu-jitsu, or Kung Fu, Jeet Kune Do, whatever you do, Krav Maga, maybe you come from a military style and you come to an instructor status. That's your understanding in a singularity. Now, if you and I, for example, were in university, say I do engineering, you do biology, we could both get our MBA. Now, we both go into our MBA to understand business. Similarly, in martial arts, for me to understand karate or whatever my singularity is of a martial art, Taekwondo, Kung Fu, whatever, I'm come from Tai Chi, MMA even, it's because it's sport-based. Now on this side, if I come over here and I learn the totality, I got to understand a little bit of traditional arts. How does that work? Where does it come from? I got to understand the street aspect. Okay, what works in the street fight? What doesn't? What do military, law enforcement, government agencies use? But then I've got to also understand sport, because it's a big part of it. I got to understand boxing and kickboxing and MMA. You don't have to become a master of it, but you got to understand it. And if you see, even in karate, there's been that evolution. So Bill Wallace, one of my teachers, came from the days of Joe Louis and came from the reverse punch time with Chuck Norris, that era. But then when they got into kickboxing, they kept the karate kicks, and what did they do? They adopted boxing hands. but they didn't lose the karate. It was still there, but they understood, hey, the boxing hands, let's throw that into that, and boom. Now you got kickboxing king, right? Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is a third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Why would Chuck Norris go get a third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Because he understood that there's something else for him to learn and grow in. And that's my point to everybody, is that you just have to look at it and where it's going. You don't have to be a master at it, but you have to understand the lingo. Okay, here's a clinch. Here's a double leg takedown. Here's a rear naked choke, an armbar.
It's interesting because you're kind of this has been my experience. I did an interview and they're like, oh, you don't have any black belts. I go, no, I don't have. I've never got to a black belt. I've done so many different styles and systems. When I was young, like Kung Fu, I did Taekwondo. I touched upon a lot. Then I did boxing, kickboxing, MMA. Then I trained privately. Then I went to work in the clubs. Then I did Krav Maga. I personally I never cared about the belt personally. I cared about what I was learning, the experience, and how it worked for me. So I did a lot of different styles, and then most of it was tested when I started working in clubs. I worked as a doorman for like 8 years in nightclubs. And for me, I said, okay, well, I spent many years training what worked, what didn't work, what was most effective, what did I keep going back to, what did I never use? And I built my own system within me and what worked best for me. So I think that's interesting that like you said, right? I mean, if you're doing karate, it's like, go do some boxing, go do some kickboxing, go in the ring. You want to experience what it is to be in a real fight. Obviously, I'm not telling you to go pick a fight. Go work in security. Go work in a nightclub. Go see what it is to be in the middle of a fight in a club with the music, the lights, and people throwing shit, and you're in the middle of a brawl, and you're like, the first time you're going to feel like so overwhelmed by it that you're going to have to readjust and rethink everything you've learned and how you're going to teach it as an instructor. But I think that, like you were saying, I think it's important for people to go out and have that aspect from the traditional, from the sport, from the street, and go and explore as many systems as you can. Be open to all of them. Take what you want, and then from there you could start really learning. And it's a never-ending process. Like I tell people, always learning from. And sometimes I go back to the basics. I'll go, okay, this shit's getting too fancy. Go back to the basics, to what you learned 10 years ago, and work on that. And I just rotate with that.
Absolutely. And the key word for everybody here is experiment.
Yeah.
You got to experiment. And experiment doesn't mean, like you said, go get in a street fight. Experiment means that you can create scenarios, and in those scenarios, put yourself in situations you've never been in, so that you have stress inoculation, which forces adaptability. If you look at a lot of SEAL training and training in the military at the highest levels, they're not actually shooting real people. They're creating scenarios to best simulate the stress response and the ability to override that using your tactics, your breathing, and your ability to come back and hone in on what your mission is that you're going to do. And that's the training. You're stressing out the system so that you realize and become aware of the stress. And once you become aware of the stress, you have a way to cope with it quickly, an actual procedure, and then implement your tactics and strategies. And that's the coolest part. I mean, you don't have to master each art. I think that's where the whole thing happens. People are like, oh, I've spent all this time doing this one art. I don't want to master all these other arts, because it's going to take forever.
Sorry to cut you off. And and I mentioned it before, I've had like a lot of people question me because I personally, because one, I'm a sponge. I want to learn. And two, I get bored, right? And that's just my personality. So I do something, I learn, and I move on. And like you said, the key word is experience, explore. But I have another question for you. Sorry, I changed the subject. What about the instructors out there who, like to keep that hold on their students? Because they do exist, where it's like, karate or judo or whatever, or grappling. Like I get shitted on by grapplers because I've said in a few videos, guys, grappling is good. There's some good elements, but you're not going to grapple your way out of a knife fight. Let's be very clear about that. But then people hear, I'm saying grappling doesn't work. And again, people hear what they want to hear. And I'm like, no, that's not what I said. I said there's great training. You're going to pick up a lot of stuff that you can use, but you cannot just grapple your way out of a knife fight. You might. I always say, is it possible or is it probable? That's the question you need to ask yourself when you're training. Is it possible you do it? Yes. Is it probable? Maybe 20%. So what are you training for? I tell people. What do you think of that about the instructors who have that hold on their students where, you know, they're trying to keep them in there with that closed mindset?
So you can only, your instructor's openness is what's going to create your openness, right? So it's the environment that you come up in. And so, you know, the way I look at that is love is blind. You love your instructor so much, and your instructor loves their instructor so much. And and they love their way, their art so much because it has given them so much, because they wouldn't be who they are without the art of where they are in life. So what ends up happening is that people sometimes get challenged, and they feel challenged by what they've learned. And instead of, because most people approach people with complaining, criticizing, and condemning, right? So complain, criticize, and condemn. That's the approach. And so when people are complaining, criticizing, condemning, then they feel like they need to challenge and they need to defend. So they're defending the honor of their teacher. They're defending the honor of their art. I'll prove it. And when that starts to happen, that's coming from fear, deep-rooted fear in your ego. It's ego fear is where it's coming from. And the whole point has to be to let go of that, even let go of your art and attachments. We have to let go of attachments, because in a fight, in life, if I'm attached to my art or I'm attached to the outcome, I'm already dead.
Good point.
It's unconditional surrender to the moment. And I have to let go of all my attachments to be wholly and totally right here, right now in the moment, so that I can adapt. If I'm stuck in a box of a pattern of what worked, it will only work against things that it worked against. But the definition of creativity, and that's why we're martial artists, is something that didn't exist, that just occurred in the moment. So that's what I'm going to need to use again, a situation that I've never been in before. Otherwise, my training will prepare me for situations that I've been in, and give me confidence in the situations that I've been in. But then I become a gambler, because I'm gambling and hoping that this is a situation that I've been in. This is a situation in which my skill set will override this skill set. But I'm gambling. What happens if you're in a situation you've never been in? That's what the whole training has to be about. So the key word then is creativity and adaptability. You have to create on the spot, and you have to adapt on the spot, because this guy might be better than you. He might have more experience than you. He might be more dangerous than you. He might have his homies with him. There's so much stuff that might happen that if you bring yourself in a box, you're going to operate from the limitations of the box. And that box is limited by your teacher's box, by somebody else's box. As a teacher, my goal is to shatter that box for you. But first, I have to give you a frame. I got to give you a frame to understand and look through. But once I do that, I've got to shatter that so that you understand that when you're operating in chaos, you have to be able to adapt. See, that's the thing with the singularity, is you're in a box. Adaptability is the space between the different boxes, the space between the techniques, the space between, which is time and space, the thoughts and emotions. There's a space between. And we have to operate from that space between, which is the still point. And how do we train ourselves to get to the center of chaos, the center of the still point, and operate from there? If we do that, we can surrender the result. Because then I'm not my own enemy. I'm not limited again, and I've broken the shackles of limitation, and I can adapt. And if I lose, I lose. But I didn't interfere in that process, and I didn't let my limitations interfere in that process. There's times when you'll find yourself do something you've never done before. That's the creativity that you have to be able to tap into in a situation that you've never been in before. If we only train for situations that we've been in, we're going to get a false confidence. But adaptability and creativity is what's going to get me out of something I've never been in before. And that's truly the most important thing of a spontaneous attack, a spontaneous assault, And that's my feeling on it. And it's not mine. That's universal, you know?
I always say when it comes to like defending yourself, fighting, whatever you want to call self-defense, I say everything works, nothing works. Right. At that moment. And the other thing I said, guys, fighting is improvising. It's in the moment. It is impossible for me to prepare you for every possible scenario that you'll ever be in, right? So I'm going to teach you concepts and strategies versus more technical, because the idea that a lot of people tell me, Nick, what if I get attacked with a knife? What do I do? I'm like, okay, give me the scenario. The guy's got a knife. He wants my money. Okay. What do I do? Then I'll be like, okay, let's just change the scenario. You're with your wife. The scenario just changed. What would you do now? Now they're two. You're with your wife. They're one. Like as soon as you change the scenario, the fight automatically changes, right? And the idea that you're going to have a fixed way that you're going to do everything will get you killed. You got to be able to assess the situation, look at the level of threat. You got to be clear in the moment and understand that every possible, like, I mean, working in clubs, we used to do scenarios for nightclubs, like bar scenarios. And as many as we did, we never, the fight never looked exactly the same way we were in. So you're right. It's that part of improvising, of being in the moment, of being able to just let everything comes out naturally, not forcing anything. I would tell this to my students. Don't force something because you're good at it or you know how to do it. Because if the opportunity is not there, don't take it, right? If the opportunity is there, take it, but don't try to force something that because you've trained in it and you're thinking that it's going to work in this situation right now. So you're right. It's that open globalness of like being in a frame and then letting them create whatever they have to at that moment.
Yeah, then we get more towards the totality. Any good general will tell you, or I'm a big fan of Sun Tzu, The Art of War. I read it every day. Musashi Goten Osho, Book of Five Rings. There's age-old strategies that are in there, and all those strategies always talk about the space between. They talk about situational awareness is the space between what's happening. Emotional awareness is the space between what's happening. Time itself is the space between. And so we tend to focus our training always on techniques, and we tend to train our focus on the physical aspects of training and stuff like that. But we don't take enough time, I think, on the person taking part, like me, like what's happening with me in that. So I always say we have to weaponize our awareness. And weaponizing awareness means there's 4 pieces. First, awareness of the self-awareness. What's going on with yourself in this situation? Are you shitting your pants? Is your heart rate racing? What's happening? And what can you do for that? Next is empathetic awareness and awareness of others. So know yourself, know your enemy. That's what that means. I got to know what's happening with you, because you could come up with me with a knife, but what's your emotional state? Are you panicky? Are you calm? What's that? Are you aggressive? Are you angry? What's the look? What's the energy? What's your spirit saying? I got to be able to read all those different things, your physical, your energy, your breathing. Your breathing is going to tell me your emotional state, right? I got to be able to read that. Then there's the situational awareness. Okay, the environment around us, other people around us. That's the third one. And then finally, there's tactical awareness. That only from the data from the first 3 can I then choose a tactical option. But if I don't have awareness of myself, others, and the situation, I can't choose. And the choosing has to be, there's no think, it's gotta go. And you're almost a creating. But the fact is that you've practiced this, that it becomes one. And like I said, every good general has a plan. But as soon as they enter the battlefield, they let go of the plan and they're open to all configurations. They're open to all possibilities. But they're not sitting there then trying to figure out the plan, because you can't figure out the plan and be open. Those two can't happen. So if your brain is trying to figure out the plan, it's not processing all the things it needs from the awareness standpoint. So that's why we have a plan, we train. Then as soon as you start, you got to let go of the plan. And you just got to be there. And like, okay, it's got, like Musashi says, it's got to be like walking. It's got to be like talking. It's how can we get ourselves into that state that it's just a very natural thing? Because truly, honestly, it is a very natural thing for us. That's what we're designed to do. It's very natural for a lion to kill. A lion doesn't have to think about it, but it does it. But we don't do it anymore. So we're in this different world we live in boxes like this. And so it's become a little unnatural.
It's,
but, you know,
it's the hardest thing. Like I try to tell my students, it's like at that moment, the number one thing you got to do is get out of your head and be clear and present in the moment only. Because if you're if you're in your head, you're missing all the little important details that are going around, whether he's reaching for a weapon, if he's angling off, if he's stepping back, if the person's coming around you. But if you're in your head and you're already doubting yourself, questioning yourself, thinking of what's happening, you cannot be at the same present moment and be able to assess the situation, diffuse the, be able to do those many important things at that very moment to maximize your offense or your defense if you have to. So I think that, again, through a lot of scenario training and try to get the students to a point where they're going to get that feeling where their heart rate, they might feel like puking or passing out, and putting them through more of those scenarios, they get to be more comfortable through time, through experiencing it and not feeling that volcano eruption that you feel the first time, like in your story, where you're like, what just happened, you know?
Yeah, because then they always say, then you're outnumbered because you're fighting yourself too, right? Because you got the guy in front of you and now you're doubting yourself. Now you're outnumbered because you're fighting two battles, right? And it's really an interesting, I love it, man, because it's like such an interesting paradigm. It's such an interesting thing altogether, because what happens now for us, right? There's three rules of nature that are just very important to learn from the Tao, right? And the Tao, when I say the Tao, is just rules of nature. It's not some religious thing. And if we understand them, we know that number one, death is certain. Absolutely. Death is certain. Your time is limited, man. It's going to come. It's on your to-do list.
Yeah.
So we wake up every morning. There's a to-do. I'm going to do this. Put number one, you're going to die. You know, it might not be today. Might be 70 years from now, whatever. But it's on your to-do list. So when you know that, then you approach each day like, shit, man, I'm going to choke the shit out of life today. I'm taking everything out of life today, right? So it's certain. It's going to happen. Let it go.
We tend to forget that.
Forget that.
If you wake up every morning and you say to yourself, today might be my last day, let me make it count, let me make it great, let me make it like if you wake up every morning with that and you're giving your 100%, like, I mean, we tend to think that we have time. It's kind of like a paradox. We have time and we don't, because and it's a double-edged sword. As time goes, our time is going as well.
Absolutely.
That thin line between the two, and I only came to realization a few years of that, and because of that, I changed my mindset and how I live my life, and I'm that much more grateful every day. I'm like, today I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna make it count. I'm gonna make it fucking great. You know what I mean? No matter what happens. And every morning I wake up, I go, yesterday was yesterday. Today it's a new day, and that's it.
Well, new day, because yesterday doesn't exist anymore.
It's done.
And tomorrow doesn't exist either. It hasn't happened. They're all illusions. And that's why, like, we have so much to thank of the great warriors of the past and the current right now that have gone through those life and death experiences to give us these nuggets. I mean, memento mori, right? That's straight Marcus Aurelius, right? That's every man must die. So if you start every day like that today could be my last day, that means I'm going to live it to my fullest. That means when I hold my child, I'm going to hold, every time I look at my son, it's like it's the last time. That means it's so powerful. Every moment I look at him, I hear him laugh, I'm like, so you experience love to a whole new level. Yeah. And the next thing that ends up happening, the second rule, is that chaos is natural. Chaos is a natural state. Chaos and conflict is natural. Our problem is not with chaos. Our problem is with comfort. We live in a very too comfort society. Netflix and chill. Shit, the reason why Netflix works, okay, look, I enjoy the shows on Netflix too. I'm not saying that I don't partake, but I understand that the design of it, that, hey, let's sit and binge and watch. But guess what? On your deathbed, you're not going to be like, I wish I watched one more Netflix series, because that time is gone. It's never coming back again. And so our problem is that we're too comfortable. We need chaos, because chaos is what makes us grow. Chaos, a lion has to hunt again tomorrow, otherwise he's not going to get food. And that makes it grow. That makes it experience life. It makes it experience the yin and yang of life. So if we understand that chaos is natural, that means that I have to learn to make myself comfortable in uncomfortable situations. That's where my performance will lie, in a fight and in life. Like, especially in the times today. Yeah. This is an amazing opportunity. Or you're going to look at it like, or you're going to look at it like, this is an amazing opportunity for me to make myself comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. Let me use this as an opportunity to practice all the shit that I know, that all these masters have said. This is an opportunity for me to practice it and evolve.
It's funny you say that, because people, I did a live today and I said, guys, in this moment of opportunity, it's not a moment of crisis, a moment of opportunity. I don't know how that's how I see it. In this moment of quarantine, I'm getting to, I started a podcast. I'm pushing my online stuff. I'm spending more time, believe it or not, with the people I love, calling them, talking to my family in Greece, because I'm always too busy. I started drawing again. I started doing a whole bunch of stuff I normally don't have time to do. So I didn't look at it as, oh my God, how bad is this going to be? I'm telling people, you should have more time on your hands to do the things that you enjoy. Don't look at it as a moment of crisis, because you're going to react to it as a moment of crisis. Look at it as a moment of opportunity, of growth, to learn about yourself, to, do something as productive as possible. So when it's over, you could look back and say, wow, those 2 months of quarantine, were pretty cool, man. I did some fun stuff. I remember when I was quarantined, I did this and this. Or are you going to, say, oh my God, those 2 weeks were so hard. And again, everything is perception. It's not really what's happening, but the way we live it, the way we react to it is more powerful than what is actually, I think, and that's where you see the mindset of each person and I see people around me, each of people's mindset, panic or fear, or like I said, opportunity, what they're going to do. And everybody's living it completely differently, yet we're all living the same thing more or less around the world, if you think about it.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. And that's really what it comes down to, because we choose our reality. We have the power. It's free will for a reason, right? What you think about comes about. Where you're coming from is where you're going. You can either do that or be like, oh my goodness, what's happening, right? And you can fall down that track. So then, we understand death is certain. We understand that chaos is natural. That means that, like what you mentioned, that change and transformation is constant. So if we're seeking the change and transformation, we're going to have a much better opportunity to grow, because that's the rules of nature and that's the way through it. But we have to be able to find it and navigate it and have the courage to do so. And what we need to have in our lives is certainty. So in uncertainty, how do we introduce certainty? And certainty is through our own training. That's when I center myself. But that training has to not just look at the physical, not just look at the mental and the spirit, but all three have to be taken in consideration. So I got to work my physical body. That's my certainty. I'm going to get stronger. Then with my mind, meditate, put myself in the right state. And with my spirit, connect to a higher purpose, be in line with the divine. What does God want from me? What is my mission? On this short little tour we're here on earth for, what am I going to do? Right? And start asking those questions. You can either go that way, or you can go into fear, uncertainty, and panic. So a warrior introduces certainty in a time of uncertainty through their own training. And through that training, it gives them an opportunity to level out so that they can see what's actually happening, not become reactive, choose responses, and craft or create their path, as opposed to reactive. Reactive is just panicky, reactive, emotional, and it's just going to create the same shit over and over again.
I went in reactive mode for about like a day or two, because I'm thinking, okay, everything is changing. Then what I did is I sat down, and right away I said, okay, let me plan this out for at least 6 weeks. What do I want to achieve in 6 weeks? I set new goals. I planned for 2 days, almost for 2 days. I just wrote a plan. I was with my girlfriend. I wrote the whole plan. I'm like, babe, this is my goal. In 6 weeks, this is what I want to achieve. Awesome. And right away, my mind shifted and purpose came out. And I said, all right, I have a whole bunch of new goals that I want to achieve, some new things I want to tackle. And I mean, right away, I shifted my mindset. I tell people your mindset is like in a steering wheel, right, in a car. If it goes this way, guess what? Everything's going to go there. And when you catch yourself going there, just try to shift it, because wherever your thoughts go, you're going to steer everything else. And you gotta train your mind. I tell people one of the most important things is train your mind, be the master of your mind. Don't let it, even when you catch it trying to steer you in a negative way or with negative emotion, just try to bring it back. And through training and conditioning, you're always going to be able to steer it that way.
You're absolutely right. And for the people listening, that, what Nick just said there is so powerful, because that's a masterful response. And that's the most important thing, because here's the other thing that ends up happening in this time is because you have all this time. And if you just start doing random things, you're not going to get anywhere. So even if you're like, oh, today I'm going to work out, I'm going to do this workout. Tomorrow I'm going to work out, I'm going to do that workout. Now, of course, you're doing better than not doing anything, but you're still wasting your time because you're not getting anywhere. So you need a plan. A plan is very important, because a plan that gives you a progression, that's what I call programming. You need a programming that plans out a progression of whatever your goal is. A simple thing is push-ups. Today I do 10, tomorrow I do 12. The next day I do 14. So every day I show up, there's a growth that I can look at in numbers, because the performance is always in the process. And what we measure is the process. We don't measure the result, because the result's not in our control. So we let go of the result, the end result, but we measure the daily process. And then come back and like, today, did I do 2 more? I did. High five, I won. Awesome. Did I take 2 more steps today? Yes. And so the programming is very important. So those people listening, pick something that you want to get better at, whatever it is, whether it's your business, your martial arts, it's an art, craft, whatever, time with your family, even time with my family is planned. Like, I'm going to do this time I planned it. I'm like, okay, kids, this time and this time, we're going to be doing this and we're going to do this. So my wife can have some time to go do her meditation. Because, the wives right now and the moms in the world, man, my heart goes out to you, because the kids are all at home. You guys are you're the real warriors right now. And man, I'm telling you, what you're doing out there, like, that is chaos. But you're managing in such a loving fashion that I got to just say, I think they're the other real heroes out there right now.
Interesting what you say, because I tell people one of the important things that people need to, like, that I've learned is time management is crucial to success. Time management, the time that you allocate to each particular thing that you want to work on. And that also comes with being aligned and knowing your values. How much time do I put in my business, in my training, in my family? Really be honest with people. Write your highest values, and don't write what's important to you based on what you're telling me. What do you do the most? That's really going to tell you, measure what are your highest values through what you do, through actions and not so much through words. And then be honest with yourself and allocate times. Like especially we're in the social media, I produce videos and stuff like that. And sometimes I have to go back and just say, whoa, okay, I'm with my son. I got to put everything aside, put down my phone, and like anything else, really be there. And sometimes it's hard when there's so much going on at the same time, but I like that. Even that is time allocated and time that you have to put in. And again, whatever you focus on, whatever time you put in, that's what's going to grow. So I think that's really interesting what you say.
Yeah. Hey, look, man, it's a stop the world moment. You're not going to get another stop the world moment like this for another 100 years, right?
It's true, huh? I tell people, you guys should be excited, man. In like 20, 30 years or whatever, you'll be like, remember that time we lived that pandemic? Every generation lives something. I go, look, we're a little bit being inconvenienced. Nobody's dying. There's still food outside. We're like the really lucky ones. So don't complain that much because you can't go out with a friend and have a beer. Just chill. They're not even asking you to do anything. Stay home. You know what I mean?
Totally. Because there are people out there in the world right now that are totally screwed. They've lost their houses. They've lost their homes. They're in India, for example, there's mass migrations going on because the people that survived every day after work had to walk thousands of kilometers because everything is shut down back to their villages and stuff like that. So there's always going to be a situation and a condition in which things are so much worse. Yeah. So it's a simple exercise that I'll give people, and I do it daily. Catch yourself complaining, criticizing, and condemning. just intercept that, become aware of that. And when you become aware of that, shift that to bless, praise, and love. And then anytime you're going to say something, is it necessary, kind, and true? I mean, if we just use that filter as a training, you'll have a much better time through this because it's...
You're right. It is training, right? It's conditioning.
It's all training. Yeah.
All right. Like I would say there's certain words that I've eliminated from my vocabulary.
Yes.
I'm not allowed to use anymore. And that was a first start I started doing. And that's helped me saying, I can't use those words anymore because those words create a stress or an anxiety or a negative feeling. So you know what? Delete, 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 delete. And every time I would catch myself, I would say, delete. Nope, I can't say that. And like anything else, like I tell people, as much as we train to be strong and a fighter, the same way we got to condition this over here. And this will navigate everything else.
That's it, man. It's a totality that we need, you know, the totality beyond that. We were talking about the totality of martial arts. That's still on a very low level. The totality is of yourself. So we have 4 things we can train. But most of the time people only train the 4th, which is their craft. And they look at that only, like their job, their craft, what they do. But there's your physical body, there's your energy body, and there's your spirit body. The physical body, that's quite obvious. The energy body, that's how much energy do you actually have? Because before time management is energy management. I can manage my time all the time I want, but if I'm running around energetically drained, if I don't have the right amount of energy, if my internal organs aren't functioning the way they're supposed to, if the chi, the prana, the life force, the bioelectricity, whatever you believe in, it's there, it's not working and functioning as a unit, it's going to drain you. But the spirit, you know, is the thoughts of the mind and the feelings of the heart corporally working. So what is leading you? Are you in, that's what I say, are you in high spirits? You're only in high spirits if you're not. So if I'm hugging my son, right? I'm not sitting there, put left hand around him, right hand around him, and hug him this way, and then be like, oh, I have an email. Oh, so my mind is thinking of some other shit while I'm hugging him. That's not going to be good. Or if I'm panicky and I'm scared and I'm fearful and I'm hugging him. If we get rid of that, then I'm obviously not in high spirits. But if I'm hugging him and I'm wholly and totally hugging him and I'm holding him and I'm feeling his heartbeat and I'm feeling the warmth, like it's the last time I'm going to hug him, and I'm so grateful for everything that I have from him and that what he gives me, boom, I'm in the center of time and space. And that's the same thing we need in the fight. You got to be in the same spot. Same thing right now, you and I. It's the same spot. I'm not thinking about the meeting I have later, the thing I got to do after, what's going to happen tomorrow. None of that shit exists right now. The only thing that exists is this. You know what I'm saying? This connection. And that's the thing. But no connection to yourself, no love for yourself. And the moment, you're never going to be able to connect to others and give it to them. So you got to put your oxygen mask on first. And for the parents at home, I know you may feel like you're running out of time, but you got to do extra stuff to make sure your energy is high, your spirit is high, because you're the leaders in your family. So if you're not pulling yourself out of the situation and doing something to change your state physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, and then therefore impacting your spirit, you're not going to be able to go back in there and then hold space for your family. And that's the most important thing right now.
Harinder, on that note, I'm going to finish it with that because I think it was so well said, and especially for what we're living right now. And I want to thank you for your time. I think it was amazing. A lot of good nuggets out there that people are definitely gonna be able to pick up, learn, and hopefully be able to use in daily practice, their mindset, their training. Where can people find you?
Sifusingh.com, SIFUSINGH.com, and mindboxing.com. So mindboxing.com. That's my program and book for mindset and stuff that I teach to corporations and people at home and executives and everybody around the world, where we take Tai Chi, meditation, and mindset and philosophy and put it all together so that we can operate at our highest level.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. So guys, make sure to check them out. I'll put the links in the comment box, and I'll see you guys next time.